Hi everyone, I'm finally back for another video. This wait for the next death battle has been a long one, but me and several others can finally say Death Battle is back, and oh am I more excited than ever. I remember a time when I thought the show was gonna be over, and honestly, those were some of the saddest times I felt. Yeah, I mean, this show means a lot to me and a whole bunch of other people. I've been watching this show ever since the tail end of season 2, and it means the world to me to be having this episode back. But, anyways, enough with the sappy stuff. Let's get into what you guys really came for. So, Death Battle's starting matchup is none other than Omni-Man versus Bardock. And yeah, this episode is pretty fitting, but also kind of a surprise to see Omni-Man coming so quickly, especially after his last appearance in Season 9 against Homelander. But honestly, this is much better than the other matchups for Invincible that I've seen. No offense to anyone who likes these matchups, they're just not for me. But anyways, now that they've actually made the episode, how do I feel about it? Let's see. Now, admittedly, the Death Battle nostalgia might be still a little in effect, so maybe my opinion on the episode will change over time, but seeing the analysis just put a massive smile on my face, even without the animated host. The analysis still feels so alive, with all the effects and editing, and honestly, I actually like this more than with the animated host. Personally, I didn't think the animated host added much. I can't help but miss them, and I didn't hate them. Like, they were awesome. But I do like this style a lot. Anyways, I like both of their analysis quite a bit overall, and they were mostly ups, but there were some downsides. Like, Omni-Man's analysis was a bit short, especially in comparison to Bardock's, which felt a little more in depth and overall seemed to focus more in on it, I guess. I don't really know how to say this. It's short, but still overall really entertaining, and Bardock's honestly wasn't as interesting to me. I do like the stuff about how he had a family and how he was one of the only Saiyans with a wife, but overall, most of it just kind of felt like the same old Versus stuff. I did really like the ending, though, where they talk about how Super Saiyan, well, yes, not technically being canon and more of a what-if scenario, it does say that maybe he could have achieved this form through, well, all the anger and passion he had. And it makes it feel like this form feels more warranted to have in a fight since it's, well, it's cool. And yeah, that's all I really need to say. But overall, I don't really have much else to say on these segments because, like most episodes, I think at least, most people watch the death battle for an animation. So, let's talk about that. Starting off, we have the introduction, and honestly, it's not bad, but I wouldn't say it's great. It makes sense that Bardock would come to this planet to conquer it, or I guess take it over, destroy all life, whatever you want to say. And then Omni-Man attacking him because he's trying to take over the planet. That makes sense. Even though I feel like Omni-Man would be a little bit more attack. Well, I don't think he would be immediately on the attack first side of things, since this guy is an unfamiliar character who isn't a Viltrumite. I'm not saying Omni-Man wouldn't do this to someone who isn't a Viltrumite, but honestly, I think maybe he could have been a bit more chill here, but I could see it working still. Anyways, the Mortal Kombat reference was really funny, and to be honest, if I'm gonna say this, I think Bardock's base form versus Omni-Man, well, not bad, of course, was a little slow. I feel like they could have done a little bit quicker action, but overall, it's fine. But I do really like the interaction with them talking about their sons and about how Omni-Man reminded, or I guess in this case, Omni-Man thought Bardock reminded him of his son because he was getting himself in a situation that he wasn't going to be able to deal with. And then Bardock counters back with all the Saiyan pride of, well, a Saiyan, and saying, yeah, my son's would beat yours into the ground. And depending on which one, yeah, I could definitely agree with him there. And yeah, but good interaction. And I do also like Omni-Man throwing Bardock's pod directly at him and then, well, crashing through it, destroying the pod, and knocking Bardock to almost unconscious, which that's really cool. And then, well, we get to the Great Ape transformation, which is, well, really good. Omni-Man says Bardock is pathetic. And, well, in a sense, yeah, Bardock at this point in the battle hadn't really shown Omni-Man much he hadn't seen before. And then Bardock tells him that Saiyans are a lot more powerful than Omni-Man is giving them credit for, and he's going to regret ever calling him weak. And then we get the red eyes of the Ozaru before immediately the transformation begins. And it looks really cool. And the fight between them, well, it's definitely better than the base Bardock fight, which, I mean, it's kind of weird to say since most of this fight is Bardock smacking around Omni-Man. Like, I think Omni-Man lands genuinely 2 hits throughout this entire interaction. But I like this is trying to show how Bardock has a speed advantage. And yeah, it works really well. Showing how it works, and yeah. But then Omni-Man's reaction to ripping off Bardock's tail is priceless, since he didn't even seem like he knew what he was doing. It was more of just an attempt to just, well, mangle his enemy like he normally does. So, honestly, I see this form more as an accident. But, yeah. Overall, great. And then immediately after, Omni-Man, using the ripped off tail, swings it directly at Bardock, sending him into space. Which is hilarious. Even though the impact is a little weak, it's fine. So yeah. So far, this fight has had its ups and downs, but still really fun so far. But now we get to the final part, where Omni-Man flies Bardock up to the blue star, and oh my gosh, is this beautiful. Yeah, this is the best looking shot in the fight. Omni-Man just choking Bardock while in front of the blue star with you barely even able to see their details, but them mostly being a shadow is just really, really cool. I mean, look at this. It looks fantastic. And then, well, immediately after that, Bardock is struggling to even stay alive at this point, but he still wants to continue for his sons and for his wife. And then he drops this banger of a line.
I won't let you take me from my wife!
Which I know is a reference to something, but I do not remember quite what it was. I think it's a reference to something in Super. I'm not too sure. But honestly, the transformation itself is still amazing. In fact, in my opinion, it rivals Goku's from Goku vs. Superman 1 in terms of how good it is. That might be just me, but I still think it's awesome. And similar to the Great Ape one, it's kind of just Super Saiyan smacking around Nolan, but Nolan's tanking the hits for the most part and firing back with his own hits if he can. Being able to put up some match against it. Now, guys, I'm going to say this. Honestly, when I first saw this matchup announced months in beforehand, I was like, okay, great, Omni-Man's coming back. But then I saw a bunch of other videos of people talking about how this matchup, while not exactly unfair, it had an obvious winner, being Bardock. And I was like, okay, if so many people are saying this, yeah. And then they were talking about Super Saiyan Bardock, and I was like, okay, yeah, Omni-Man is dead here. And then what made it even worse is that Bardock had the speed advantage, and I was like, really? Okay, yeah. I was obviously voting for Omni-Man since he is my preferred character here. But I was like, okay, I'm gonna see Omni-Man probably lose this, but like, yeah. I'm gonna enjoy the fight, but Omni-Man is done for. He is just screwed. There is no possible way he could. No joke, my mouth dropped to the floor when I saw this. With shock and confusion, and honestly, I didn't even know how to respond. I was waiting for some type of fake out, but in my mind, I just knew there wasn't going to be one because, well, this isn't that type of matchup. You can't really have a fake out in this type of matchup because neither of their abilities really have any fitting towards it. And, like, yeah, this was just wow. But then we see Bardock slowly falling back, noting about how Nolan finally recognized the Saiyans, and he tells him that he should remember the Saiyans because they're going to be notable for the future. And he slowly falls to the sun below, and again, another beautiful shot. And then we cut back to Nolan, and, well, both him and the audience is left in shock, left time to process about what just happened. And you can tell he's exhausted from the fight and contemplating on what he did. And honestly, you can kind of tell he feels a little guilty, or at least from my view of it is. He just killed someone similar to him, someone who had a family that needed him, but because of him, he's never going to see them again. And he just says,
Fuck.
he messed up in some form or way. I mean, this could be something else entirely, but this is what I get from this scene. So yeah, a interesting put ending, and honestly, I really love this ending. Now, I will say this, the ending did feel a little anticlimactic, with it feeling a little sudden with how Nolan just punched him, and yeah, just punching his arm and then it just felt like it ended a little too quickly. But honestly, that doesn't mean I hate this, because seeing Bardock's arm breaking is just awesome. Like, you don't get much cooler than this, I think. And yeah. But now to the conclusion, and I know most people probably disagree with the outcome, because most people said Bardock would win this fight, and I mean, I was one of those people. So, yeah. So, how do I feel about him losing this episode? I really don't care. Omni-Man was my preferred character here, and while that might just seem like, oh, you just like the episode because your preferred character won, no, that is not the case in the slightest. Especially since I knew I was going to like the episode regardless, because I was fully expecting Bardock to win here. And, well, I think they did a pretty solid job on explaining how they came to the conclusion that Omni-Man won. I mean, yeah, I disagree with some stuff. I don't think Bardock is this fast, and I don't. Well, and I think he's actually stronger than what they gave him for. But, yeah, I mean, I think they did an overall pretty good job explaining it. Bardock was faster, way faster. He didn't really have any good means of taking out Nolan unless if it was in his Super Saiyan form, since that's the only time where his damage would actually be enough to harm Nolan. And even then, this came at a risk because of the fact that he didn't fully master the Super Saiyan form, meaning he would be doing more damage to himself and would drain way quicker compared to Omni-Man, who can fight for way longer, and his smart cells could keep him in the fight for quite a bit longer. Especially since he was 23 times stronger than the Super Saiyan form, which is kind of insane to think about. So, yes, I think people have the right to think that this episode is wrong. Because, honestly, I think this fight could go either way. But, oh my gosh. Yeah, I was so happy to see Omni-Man pull this off. But, overall, what would I give this episode? Probably an 8 to 8.5 out of 10. Like I said, the fight is slow at points, and while there are some great moments in there, most of it is just the simple combat that you would see standard in a Dragon Ball episode. Not saying that's a bad thing, but I wouldn't say it's like near the top of the Dragon Ball episodes so far, but it is still really solid. Do I think it's better than Omni-Man versus Homelander? No. It is not quite as good because I think Omni-Man's voice actor is a little better there. I think Homelander was portrayed perfectly. Its death was better, and its introduction was better as well. Plus the fact I think their analysis segments were just a little better in that episode than they were here. But yeah, don't let that fool you. I still think that this is a great episode. Now for the next time, yeah, this is a interesting one. So when I first saw this, my reaction was, well, straight up laughter, because this is my friend's most wanted matchup. I think it is, at least. I've asked him multiple times and he isn't very clear, but this is the one I can get the most consistent saying that this is something he wants to see, so I'm assuming it is. And honestly, how do I feel in the matchup? I feel eh. I like Joker. I don't know much about Giorno. I'm not a huge fan of JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, but it's cool. From what I sound from well, sorry. From what it sounds like, it could be an interesting debate. It sounds like this is a debate between stats versus hacks, where one character completely outstats the other, but the other one just has so much more hacks that it arguably could counter this. It's actually kind of what I thought Vader versus Obito would have been. But in this case, it's almost impossible to find a winner where people could at least agree on it. I don't think it's possible to find a prominent winner where they would actually agree. Uh, and yeah, I think Joker is actually the only one that can actually kill the other here. I could be wrong. Sorry for my controversial take, but from what I hear, it sounds like Joker is the only one who has any way of taking the other out. And he even has some form, not like a perfect counter, but he has some ways of getting past Gold Requiem, I think. It's hard to say. But I'm not a versus debater. Well, at least not in comparison to the professionals. And, well, yeah, this is definitely one of my preferred JoJo's Bizarre Adventure fights, and the last couple JoJo's Bizarre Adventure fights were pretty good overall. We don't talk about Jotaro versus Kenshiro, but overall, I hope this is cool, and I hope I get to learn some new things about these characters, and especially in Giorno's corner, because I don't really know who he is very well. So, yeah. And that was my review of Omni-Man versus Bardock. And yeah, great episode overall. I am really excited for what is in store for this new independent era of Death Battle. And what we have in the future and what we know so far, and the matchups for the Kickstarter and all the stuff we have, like Bowser versus Eggman and Kratos versus Azura's sneak peeks so far. Yeah, this could be very well the best time for Death Battle ever, especially with how well they started. Anyways, thanks for watching. You guys can comment down below your thoughts on this episode if you want. And yeah, see you guys later.